Hi, you're listening to Geoff Hughes and you're listening to the eBook Revolution, broadcast by madhouseMEDIA.com.au. That's www.madhousemedia.com.au. And I'm Geoff Hughes from Madhouse Media. Now, one thing that concerns me, one thing I'm interested about, is the difference between a writer and an author. And what I think writers should always be called authors. Now, what do you think about this? Let's just bear me out, have a listen, and I'd like to maybe start a dialogue on this. Pop back onto the website, www.madhousemedia.com.au, and maybe leave a note. But why writers should always be called authors? Now, I think this is a pretty important point. There was a blog post written by Michael Kozlowski a while ago on Good e-Reader, and you can probably Google it and find it. And his basic argument was that writers shouldn't be as presumptuous to call themselves authors unless they have, validation from, a real publishing house. So so basically, they shouldn't call themselves authors unless they've been signed up to a contract, and the signing of a contract and the validation of a real publishing house makes them a real author. Now, this sort of cuts across the whole business mindset of being an authorpreneur, an independent author, in my view. And Michael wrote, just because it's easy to upload your written word so that it can be downloaded to another machine does not make you an author, any more than buying a stethoscope allows me to be called a doctor. Well, that's true. And he did go on to have a rant about the advent of the do-it-yourself ebook publishing world, I think, and that it devalues the word author. Now, I don't think it does that. And I want to have a rant as well because I think it's a pretty ridiculous argument. Now, here's why, really. If you create something, right, whatever that is, you're the author of that work. So whether you're creating a painting, a story, a business plan, or a song, it's pretty irrelevant if it's been sold, bought, or validated by some professional gatekeeper. At one point, the art didn't exist, and you made it. Now it does. So you're the author of it, and that's the end of it. So you're the author of your life, of your successes and failures. If you've got the guts to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and write something that exists in a complete and public form, well, surely to Christ, you're the author of that as well. And whether it generates income is pretty irrelevant, I think. How it becomes public, it doesn't devalue the authorship. I mean, the act of creating the art defines the authorship. Do you follow me? You create something, you are the author. You don't need to be validated by a publishing house if you write a book to be an author. You've written the book. If you write a term paper, you're the author of that term paper. It's not going to be published. You're the author. So arguing that writers devalue the word author by having the outrageous temerity to self-publish, I think it makes a simple mistake. Now, don't get me wrong, some self-published books are absolute rubbish, and that's true. Rubbish on all sorts of levels. Like, there hasn't been thought put into the content or the cover or any of the production mechanism to create the ebooks. That maybe rushed out is a kinder way to say it. But it's untrue that all self-published books are therefore rubbish as well. I think what is true is that the good and the bad, the sold and the unsold, they all had authors. How couldn't they? They just didn't blink into existence, these things. They were created. So whether it's crap or not crap, it still had an author. They were created. The good and the bad, the crap and the uncrap, the funded and the unfunded. And I think to argue only good writers are authors is just bullshit, really, because there's enough bad, I'm putting finger exclamation mark, professional authors in the world to really put a hole in that argument. I mean, there's some crap professional authors. Tell me that I'm wrong. There's some awful self-published books. I'm not denying that. That's just how it is. But there's also some pretty appallingly professionally produced books as well. Now, these books have earned, some author, again, my little finger quotation marks, they've earned some author a nice little advance. But in the process, whole forests have been felled, whole areas the size of Tasmania have been laid bare to produce books that nobody wants to read. Unloved and badly reviewed books that fill discount bookshops throughout the English-speaking world. And you've seen it yourself, Go into a remainder bookshop and just marvel at some of this stuff. It's been professionally produced. An author's been given a contract. The book has been produced. Nobody's bought it. And here it is on the remainder table for 50 cents. And I've picked up some great bargains that way as well. But these books, like I said, they've earned somebody a nice little advance. And they end up on the remainder table until finally they're pulped and recycled into more bad fiction. All this stuff had an author. So just because a writer self-publishes, does that give them less of a right to be called an author? I argue no. Because in the professional model, where's the quality control? Okay? What I've talked about is a model of writers that are made professional and, they become official authors and they produce appalling genre, copycat, unsellable rubbish. And really, as I said, just walk into any remainder bookshop and have a look on what's on the table, which is really like the last train before these sad old books, go to be pulped and reincarnated. So it's pretty clear, really, that just being published by a dead tree publisher, it never was and never will be any reason to say it's quality writing. So therefore, why should somebody that really puts some quality and professional do-it-yourself quality control into an independently produced book, why should not they be called an author as well? Of course they're an author. Another argument on the other side is there should be some sort of income threshold that a writer must declare before they can call themselves a proper author. That is bullshit as well. I mean, Kozlowski cites membership rules for the American Society of Publishers and others that stipulate an income threshold before you can join. So what? I mean, these clubs can have whatever rules they like. It reminds me a bit of the old school golf clubs that won't let you in if you're wearing blue jeans. I remember a few years ago I was playing in a band and we had a gig at a very upmarket golf club in Sydney called the Roseville Golf Club, and this is very, very old school, very, very upper class, very high socio-demographic area, I suppose you say. Anyway, we turned up early to set the equipment up. And it was the middle of summer, so I had jeans and T-shirt on. And, we were setting up the equipment for New Year's Eve, which the gig was. And we finished setting up. So what is the first thing a rock and roller wants when he finishes lugging in all this equipment? A nice, refreshing beer, of course. And so I walk over to the bar, and these characters straight out of a Jeeves novel behind the bar, just studiously ignoring me, serving people that were coming left, right. I'm just standing there politely waiting to just order a beer for me and one of the bandmates. And finally, this old guy behind the bar leans over. He has a bow tie on, brill creamed hair, a little tiny mustache, and he leans over and says, "Yes, can I help you?" And this is after about 20 minutes. I said, "Could I get a beer, please?" And he just said, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't serve you wearing jeans." Extraordinary. These so-called societies, that it always makes me think of that. Even though you're a jean wearer, I could have been the next Tiger Woods, but they wouldn't let me even have a beer, let alone membership, because I wore jeans. It's a nice, cosy gentleman's club for real golfers. Just like the Society of Publishers is a nice, cosy gentleman's club for real, I'm going to put my imaginary exclamation marks with my fingers, for real authors. So I think Groucho Marx has the best quote on this. And basically he said, "I don't want to belong to any club that will accept people like me as a member." I'm with Groucho on that. There's a lot wrong with this argument. The argument where we about having to earn a certain amount of money from your writing before you can be considered an author. Now, again, it's just designed to exclude authorpreneurs. And really, authorpreneurs don't need to be part of that club. There's a lot wrong with the argument. That as an artist, and here's the argument, that unless you're earning money from your art, that you have no right to call yourself an artist or an author. Now, if we took this argument to its logical extremity, that immediately discounts a very, very long list of writers who were rejected over and over again by these so-called, I call them the gatekeepers of dead tree publishing. Let's just have a look at some of the authors that were knocked back, right? These are authors that, under the rule Kozlowski's talking about, that we should have some income threshold before you can be called an author, right? Now, these authors were knocked back many times, rejected before they made a cent from their writing. Writers like George Orwell, Jack Kerouac, Stephen King, J.D. Salinger, H.G. Wells, even J.K. Rowling, and more recently, some of the poster boys for Authorpreneur and self-publishing, like Hugh Howey from the Wool science fiction series. But if you want to have a laugh, have a look at literaryrejections.com, and that'll give you a full list, because it's a huge list, and I think it just shoots complete holes in the argument that you shouldn't dare call yourself an author unless you make X dollars per month. I mean, have a look, literaryrejections.com. And that's got a complete list there. And, I've always argued this. The good things that a traditional publisher can bring to a writer is this. They can bring editorial input, design, cover design, layout, quality control, and, of course, brand and marketing. And in the new world of the Authorpreneur, if you want to be a successful independent writer, you've got to do all this yourselves. And you've got to take on and ensure that you have the best quality control. Because a traditional publisher gives you that, sure. That's one of the benefits, of course. So going the independent Authorpreneur track, you've really got to take on the quality control yourself. And that it means you've got to hire people with the right professional backgrounds. You've got to, organise editors, cover designers, layout. You've got to make a great product. You've got to write a great book, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. It's doesn't really matter. As long as the product you're putting out there is as professional as what a trad publisher can put together for you. So that's what I see is the main difference between traditional publishing and independent Authorpreneur writers, authors. We're talking about why independent Authorpreneurs should be called authors. And, of course, they should be called authors. You do it yourself. You've got to do it professionally. You've got to make a great product. Take pride in your work, people. Don't put rubbish out there. I've said this many times too. Just because you can quickly upload something to Amazon, KDP Select, it don't mean you should. Get some advice, get some feedback. Make sure what you do publish is the best that you can put together. You want to put together a professional, slick product. Now, if a writer's got something to say, or a story to tell or something to teach, and they find an audience that's interested in reading and paying them, it's your responsibility to make your quality control right up there with any book that's published by a major. And then basically it's an equal playing field then. You've got a great product. As an independent writer-author, you've also got to wear a marketing hat and do all that's possible to grow your tribe and get your book in front of an audience. Now, if we do all that and we still have no audience, well, into the digital remainder bin we go. We don't go on the the dollar bookshelf table. It just off it goes. After all that, you've still got the right to be called an author. Whether somebody bought the work or not, it's been produced. Somebody somewhere may find some value in it. So whether you've been admitted to the club or not really has no bearing on whether you should or should not be called an author. I maintain you create something, you are the author of it. Whether it's a song, whether it's an eBook, because who are we to say that one book is more worthy than another only because of its means of finance and production? Authors produce them all. So you can't argue that just because a book's been produced by Random House, okay, does that make some rubbish produced by Random House any more worthy than a useful, entertaining professionally produced ebook produced by an independent author that finds an audience and sells the book? What's the difference here? There's no difference. An author is an author. And I think the argument that I can buy a stethoscope and call myself a doctor, well, that's bullshit too, really. I mean, it's a funny little one-liner, but there are a whole lot of success stories in independent publishing and authorpreneurship. And I maintain, and just as a way of wrapping up this rant, this podcast rant, why writers should always be called authors. If you create something, you're the author. And if you're going to be an independent writer-publisher, then be professional about it. Take some pride in your work. That's all I'm saying. Writers should always be called authors. I'm Geoff Hughes from madhouseMEDIA. You can read the podcast notes at www.madhousemedia.com.au. And you can also hear my show on Stitcher, Radio on Demand. If you haven't got it already, get the free app today. Stitcher's an award-winning free app that lets you listen to your favourite show. Discover lots more like this one. Over 20,000 podcasts from news, entertainment and sport shows, etc., etc., etc. Even better, it's in 4 million car dashboards. So maybe you're listening to this in your Prius right now. If you haven't got Stitcher, download it free today at stitcher.com or in the App Store. And, of course, we're also in the iTunes App Store as well. That's it for me, Geoff Hughes, from the eBook Revolution from Madhouse Media. Talk to you next time.